Okay, so the thing about them threatening my brother's grave is that the channels that originally did it regret doing it because they didn't realize that my family was actually abusive and would take things too far, which is a risk that you play when you play games like this because you don't know who's watching you. You don't know who's going to take your advice. You don't know who's going to think your joke is hilariously funny and needs to be put into reasonable action. You don't know when you're telling 10,000 people that this joke is so funny and somebody should do this. You don't know whether somebody's actually going to do it or not. So when Adonis Paul made that video telling all of his followers to go and piss on my brother's grave, raising money so that he could go and desecrate my brother's grave, he had no idea that my maternal aunt would actually visit the grave with a bottle of apple juice and make a video. And since she did that, they have been backtracking hard. I mean, hard. Everybody says that never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened. It was for a truck. It was for a truck. It was for a truck. It was not for a truck. That's where the money went. That's what it was used for. But every once in a while, somebody in their group will admit to the truth that they know. Didn't even get peed on. Somebody put a bottle of apple juice there. No urine involved. Sure, no urine involved. What does apple juice look like? What do people use apple juice for sometimes when they're pretending to be holding urine? There's even a joke in the movie My Sister's Keeper where she's supposed to be handing in a urine sample. And she's like, how do you know it's not apple juice? For a very long time, it has been a well-known reference that apple juice looks like urine. So people joke that it's the same. So holding a fundraiser saying we're gonna go piss on this grave, and then showing up at the grave with a bottle of apple juice and setting it down on the grave and giggling about it, which is what my aunt did, is symbolically desecrating my brother's grave. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's extremely emotionally abusive. And it's something that was done not only by it was done by my abusive family, this is the kind of shit that abusers do. Especially in my family. This is the exact kind of shit I was speaking out about when I wrote my book about my abusive family. I knew exactly the kind of things that they would do because I've lived with them and I know that they're abusive. The channels attacking me were trying to defend my family and say that they're not abusive. But how do you keep defending them when they keep proving that they are not okay? It doesn't matter how long ago this happened, because I'm always going to hurt for it. Every time I think about my brother, I think about the fact that he's been used in this manner. And it's fucked up. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that they are targeting my brother. Because it's a big deal. It means something that they're targeting my brother, and they're not targeting him just because he's dead. It's easy to target somebody who's dead. They can't say anything against you. They can't do anything. They're dead. Right? It's an easy target. But in my family, that's what you do. You target and you blame and you terrorize the one that's not there. I want to tell you all a little bit about my brother so that you can understand why it hurts so much that they're doing this, because it's not just, I know a lot of people have dead family members and they don't get, people make jokes and they just let it go. They don't spend the rest of their lives, walking on eggshells around that memory. But with my brother, he was the only good one. And it was because he didn't have a choice. He couldn't be bad because he was handicapped in a way that he couldn't do anything. And he was handicapped in that way because of my father's abuse. Because of the abuse that I tried to speak out about. My father was a violent man. And he beat my mother regularly through my entire childhood. I would lay in bed and listen to my mother being beaten, knowing that if I went to defend her, I would be beaten. I learned to shut off my emotions towards hearing somebody else being hurt, because if you go towards it, you're the one that's going to be hurt. You have to learn how to listen to it and not get involved, which is very hard. My family learned to not get involved, so nobody ever said anything to my mother about her choice to stay with him. My aunt will defend my father and say that he was a wonderful man, but she didn't bring her kids around him when they were little because she knew he wasn't no wonderful man. When I was around a year old, my mother was pregnant again with another baby. And my father believed this child was going to be a girl. And he already had 2 girls, and he didn't want another damned girl. So when he got home that night, he knocked my mom to the floor. He sat on her stomach, and he beat her head into the floor until she passed out. Neighbors pulled him off of her. And my brother was born with cerebral palsy after an emergency C-section. I wish I had his medical records to know exactly what went on the day he was born, but I don't. I only have the stories that people were willing to tell me, because in my family it's very hard to find somebody willing to speak the truth. I found one person willing to tell the truth years ago, and she'll never speak out again because the family got to her. But in my life, I've had 2 people tell me this, so I know that it's true. Because my grandmother told me this when I was 13 years old. She wanted me to know what kind of man my father was. And she told me that my brother's handicap was because of my father. And a couple of years ago, one of my aunts confirmed that. My brother spent his entire life in a wheelchair, eating through a G-tube, wearing diapers, unable to speak, unable to walk, unable to hug. He could not control his limbs well enough to hug you. Because my father couldn't keep his hands off of his wife while she was pregnant. And my family still wants to deny that there was ever any abuse. I hate them. And I know it's not their fault, because this kind of shit is hard. It's hard to live with. It's easier to just say that that wasn't real. But I can't. I can't make it a joke. So when you remember that my aunt actually visited the grave, please remember whose grave it was. It was the grave of a boy who never had a life because of this family's abuse. And he's still being exploited and used because of this family's abuse. Even in his grave, he can't have peace because they're going there to continue abusing. And he didn't do anything. They're doing it to hurt me. Abusers will hurt anybody they need to hurt in order to get to their victim. It's fucked up.